Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump set to put the economy front and center this morning at a speech at the New York Economic Club today. This coming as Trump slams Ford's latest announcement that it plans to move all of its small car manufacturing plants to Mexico. Watch.
I think they maybe announced it today because they think I'm going to win and I'm going to stop them. You know, I have a way of stopping them. Basically, when they make their car and they think they're going to get away with this, and they fire all their employees in the United States, they move to Mexico. When that car comes back across the border into our country that now comes in free, we're going to charge them a 35% tax. And you know what's going to happen? They're never going to leave.
And joining me right now is Republican vice presidential nominee, Governor Mike Pence. Governor, good to see you.
Thank you, Maria. Good to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us. Do you think that's right? Do you think at the end of the day, should Donald Trump become president and you become vice president, Ford scraps the plan?
Well, look, I think Donald Trump has a plan to get this economy moving again after 7.5 years that have stifled the American economy. I mean the avalanche of regulations, higher taxes, Obamacare, the war on coal has been crushing the vitality out of this economy, and we've seen the results. I mean, we have the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression, and Donald Trump on issues of trade, on lowering taxes, on rolling back regulations, ending the war on coal, all of that represents a 180-degree turn from where Barack Obama has been and where Hillary Clinton wants to take us. And so I have every confidence you're going to see manufacturing come roaring back in America, and we're going to make America a more hospitable place to make cars and to build things. But we're also going to have smarter and tougher trade deals that will cause American companies to think twice about making the kind of decisions that Ford announced yesterday.
So what do you think is going to be really the crux or the most important part of Donald Trump's economic plan today? He's talked a lot. He's come on this program, talked about a 15% corporate tax rate.
Right.
What kind of an impact will that have?
Oh, I think it's going to have an enormous impact.
And is that the most important part of the plan?
Well, I actually think every part of it's important. I think lowering marginal rates for working families, small businesses, ending death taxes once and for all, but recognizing that we have one of the highest business tax rates in the industrialized world, and we're literally are driving companies and driving capital out of this country. Donald Trump and I understand that, and lowering the corporate tax rate to 15% is going to make it possible for businesses to make decisions that keep jobs and opportunities here. But I actually think of equal importance to the tax reductions and getting tougher on trade and ending the war on coal is rolling back this avalanche of regulation coming out of Washington, D.C. You know, when Carrier announced that they were pulling up stakes and taking 1,400 jobs from the state of Indiana earlier this year, I had the folks in my office that run that company, and they told me that part of it was that all of their competitors were already in Mexico. That's why we need to reform NAFTA and renegotiate it, as Donald Trump has advocated. But the other part they said was that avalanche of regulations, the Department of Energy, in their business alone, Maria, there were 50 new rules in the last 2 years. Rules come out about the size of a phone book for a company.
Yeah.
50 new rules that came out that only applied to their company and to their industry. That kind of red tape is stifling American jobs. Donald Trump's going to sign a moratorium on any new regulation the day he becomes president. And in addition to that, we're going to repeal all of the Obama executive orders that are stifling growth and creating a tremendous burden on American jobs.
Look, it's a direct impact. We've seen that there is basically a recession in terms of business spending right now. Businesses are not putting new money to work because of the regulatory hurdles that you're talking about. What would you say is the most onerous out there? Is it Dodd-Frank? Is it Obamacare? What's really the crux of the problem when it comes to regulation, or is there just too many?
Well, of course there's too many. It is almost incalculable to assess the amount of regulation that's poured out of this administration. But I would say a couple levels. I think for manufacturing that's, excuse me, so strong in the state of Indiana, regulations coming out of the Department of Energy, the EPA, that are stifling growth and costing jobs. But on the small business level, Maria, Obamacare is a job killer. I've lost count of the number of small business owners in the state of Indiana, and as I've traveled around this country as a candidate for vice president, who've told me they will not hire that 50th employee. They stop at 49, and that's to avoid the additional strictures that come under Obamacare. We're going to repeal Obamacare in its entirety. We're going to bring forward the kind of health care reform Donald Trump will describe in the weeks ahead that'll build on free market principles and on allowing states to innovate and reform Medicaid the way we started to do in Indiana.
So you have to walk a balance here. I mean, it happens to be that today is the 8-year anniversary of when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. And we know that partly the regulatory environment, really the pendulum swung so far because of what happened in the 2008 crisis. How do you walk this balance of ensuring that you've got the right structure of regulations in place, but it's not overbearing and really strangling corporations and stopping them from investing?
Well, number one, you asked that question. Instead of driving policies that promote the kind of consolidation in a banking industry that pretends that what happened during that collapse happened with all the financial institutions in the country. Frankly, it happened with just a handful of larger investment banks that got involved with all of these different boutique financial instruments.
Right.
But your community bankers out there, your bankers out in the state of Indiana, they were solvent, they were strong. But Washington's answer always, I always like to say Washington does two things very well: nothing and overreact. And Washington, D.C. overreacted with massive new regulations that ultimately now is raising the cost of lending, the cost of being in financial services. It's driving consolidation. We've got to pull it back, and we've got to ensure real vitality in our financial markets.